What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest of cybersecurity news, as well as behind those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, with people of color who made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes
What's up? What's up?
and Chris Abercon.
What's going on, everyone?
What's going on? I got to stop saying special guest because you appear too often. So,
Awesome.
another amazing week. So, please continue to tune in. So Monday, Tuesday are topics, Wednesday discussion. Thursdays, Ask Us This Piece. So if you have not already, please go back and listen to my interview with Alan Wesley. So he is in the AI space, as well as he is a cybersecurity leader and a DEI champion. So really interesting conversation. So please tune in that one. And then I have another one lined up for this week. So no spoilers ahead of time though, because we recorded this obviously in the past, and then that one's in the future. So either it'll be this week or next week, but please tune in for that. So without further ado, I'll give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. This article comes from Reuters.com, written by Christopher Bing and Karen Freifeld. And it's exclusive. It says U.S. disabled Chinese hacking network targeting critical infrastructure. So we talked about this before on the show about how the U.S. government is not playing anymore, right? Like it's time to start going after people and stop being on the defensive, right? So what's been happening is the U.S. government in recent months, they launched an operation to fight the Chinese hacking operation, I guess you could say, which was targeting internet connected devices, right? So your different IoT devices, your routers, things of that nature. So what was happening was China was kind of gearing up, right, to take on this major hacking operations and get out there and kind of, and we've seen this before, right, with the theft of intellectual property that they've done. But some of the stuff they've been accused of when it comes to critical infrastructure, where they've been wreaking havoc. But the hacking group they're going after, the United States government is going after for this one's called Vault Typhoon, which is actually kind of a cool name, right? They always have the cool, they always have the cool names for all these different like hacker groups and stuff like that. I'm like, man, that sounds so cool, you know what I mean? But it's like they're doing so bad. But this is one of those groups that's alarmed intelligence officials, right? Because what they're saying is that these guys are going after Western critical infrastructure, right? And we talk about this all the time about infrastructure being a target, and this is how wars are going to start, right? Vault Typhoon's been accused of going after internet service providers, utilities, naval ports. That's a big one, right? Because a lot of the stuff that comes in ship, not necessarily, Department of Defense Navy, but like even civilian naval ports, right? You got stuff that comes into the ports that's shipped to the country. It could be numerous things: food, different utilities. Your oil, things of that nature. So, but yeah, the White House and private technology industry have been having meetings about this, right? Because they see the horizon here, and they see what's going on. And we talked about this, right? Ever since the onset of COVID, cyber activity has just been ramping up because we all know that that's the way that things are going to go. But the U.S. government is going after this group, Vault Typhoon. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, no more of this, right? Like we've had enough of being on the defensive. It's time to get ahead of the game and start going after you guys for what you're doing. But Chris, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about Volt Typhoon. There's actually, if you Google them, Microsoft's got a little article about them as well. So it's pretty interesting as to what they've done specifically. So some areas they've been really targeting, and what's interesting about them is that they completely bypass social engineering. They're completely run by botnets, clouds, or whatever, however they do it. But some of their methods to try to access are, they execute through PowerShell CLI. They are persistent with, the acquisition of valid accounts. There's a diagram here on the Microsoft website. They collect local browser data, they stage data, they have visualization evasion. Not really sure what that means, but it's really, really fascinating. And a lot of their stuff is done by internet proxy, and it's really fascinating as to how they've really proliferated their capabilities. They have an entire section on the Microsoft website on their credentialed access, right? So they have an ability to compromise like Fortinet devices that have privileged access, and they dump credentials through utilizing something called local security authority subsystem service, right? Which is a process memory space that contains hashes for the current user's OS credentials. So it is they've got a really fascinating and really advanced level of knowledge. And again, they are state sponsored. So I think in academia they're called advanced persistent threats, right? So really, really, this really harps on kind of going back into, CMMC, going into, all these standards that we have to make sure that we abide by. So, because at the end of the day, I think I've said this before, but national security, cybersecurity is national security in this case. In this case, when they're targeting critical infrastructure, that can, not only affect, your technology devices and things like that, but they're gonna get to the point where they're targeting operation technology, your water systems, sewer systems, things like that, and that can just wreak havoc, right? So really be mindful and just just know that it's around you. There's always bad guys trying to access something out there all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I found interesting was that in May, when this was first brought to worldwide attention, right? When the Department of Justice was like, hey, watch out for Vault Typhoon, this is what they're doing. The Chinese spokesman, hopefully I get this right, Mao Ning, said this was a collective disinformation campaign from Five Eyes, right? Five Eyes being Australia, Canada, New Zealand, United Kingdom, and the United States. So he said collectively we're trying to say that this exists and then they're doing nefarious things because they are. So not necessarily disinformation, right? Like it's just they were outed and had to respond. So with that being said, yeah, they have humongous botnets, which makes them a danger for distributed denial of service attacks, as well as they said laundering. So I think in this case, they're saying laundering in anonymity is what they're trying to get at with that terminology, saying that because their botnet is so wide and widely distributed, it's hard to pinpoint that it's coming from Chinese state actors, which I find interesting as well, because we saw those big spikes last summer when Microsoft had to defend one of the world's largest botnet attacks. So could have been Vault Typhoon. So crazy stuff. So hopefully we keep this on lock because I know not only our structure is in danger, but Taiwan is also a target of China, right? Because they still believe Taiwan to belong to them. That's always been a dispute. The United States is, from China's point of view, in collusion with Taiwan, and Taiwan belongs to us, is what they say. Taiwan feels differently. Like, no, we're our own country. So it's more of like, hey, they're gearing up to attack Taiwan and any of their allies, the US being one of their number one supporters, right? So very interesting stuff, geopolitical stuff that bleeds into, like you said, Chris, national defense. So um, uh, they are a threat, just like the Iran state sponsors, just like um, Russia's numerous state sponsors. So they're on the list. So it's good to see the Department of Justice step in. So interesting stuff. Like 2024 is going to be very, very interesting. Um, hopefully we don't see any nonsense like the Russia-Ukraine situation in Taiwan. So, but
I'm I think that is going to come to a head.
you think
But
this year? I hope not.
I think so.
It's too much stuff. It's too much stuff is
It's
happening in the world.
it's really interesting. Like there's economic problems in China, right? Their biggest real estate corporation is going to go bankrupt, right?
Yeah, I
So
saw
they're
that. They have all those empty houses.
empty houses, like millions of houses, empty, unfinished, right? They've got towers, just shadows.
Yeah,
There's just
ghost cities. Yeah,
ghost cities,
yeah,
right?
crazy stuff.
But then like I don't know those geopolitical ramifications. Like, hey, this would war stimulate their economy? I don't know, but we'll see. I think there's a lot to consider on the potential, invasion of Iran. I'm sorry, Taiwan.
Right, right. Yeah, hopefully not. I
Yeah,
just it's too much stuff is happening. Like the waterways are in
Right.
contention, right? So we're ramping up operations there. Obviously Ukraine and Russia. It's still an ongoing. I think it's been 2 years. Has it been that long?
2 years in
Yeah,
February.
2 years. Yeah.
It's crazy. And then
Wow.
on top of that, obviously Israel versus Hamas is raging. So the world is doesn't need another one. We don't need any more conflict.
So not to get into political or war or anything like that, right? Just to touch on it a little bit. The reason I say is I think it's going to come to a head is because we're being spread thin, not in a way of sending troops for support, but in sending munitions, right? So we're sending aid to Israel, we're sending aid to Ukraine, right? We're every time one of these Chinese jets goes over Taiwan, right? Like there's support from us for that, right? Like we're just being spread thin, and I think this will be the time where they'll be like, okay, it's time for the iron to strike, right? Like there's predictions out there from people with stars on their, I guess, their chest now, right? Everybody wears OCP, so
Right.
I was gonna say on their lapel, but that's when I was in, right? But on their
Right.
on their chest that say as early as 2025, like this conflict with China is going to kick off. I mean, 2027 is the prevailing theory, but 2025, there have been a couple out there that said that's when it's going to go down. But I think we might beat that timeline. We'll see.
Okay. I'm hoping you're not Nostradamus.
Negrodamus, you know.
That's hilarious. It was that
That's awesome.
Paul Mooney, right?
Paul,
Paul
probably.
Mooney,
Yeah.
yeah. Late Paul Mooney, yeah.
Right, right. But all right, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode. Please continue to tune in. I always forget, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We were having really good year last year, so the stats were upwards of 550 unique listeners and averaging about 1,700 downloads per month. So I want to continue that into the year. We had 1 month where we had 3,000 downloads. Like, I'd like to get closer to that number again. So continue to tune in to all the websites that go by our name. You can hit me in person. I'm at RY Security Guy. That's RY Security Guy. You can find me on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, Twitter, and Threads. And you, Chris?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. My last name is spelled A Bacon.
There it is. Stay safe, stay secure.
See you guys.